sense of like there's something wrong with me, like I'm not what I'm supposed to be, gets projected onto spirituality as like I'm not enlightened and not awakened. There's some experience I'm supposed to be having, and yeah, it's like we sort of view ourselves as like inadequate, like our experience is not what it, like yeah, is wrong. And yeah, just I would want to point to like how it's not wrong. Like your direct experience is always valid, whatever you're experiencing. There's nothing wrong with your journey.
Hello, Adam.
Hi, Ilona.
Thank you for coming to this meeting, to this show.
Yeah, lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
And the show is called Awakening Now. It's primarily for people who are still looking for awakening or just had an awakening or don't know what's next. It's really all about that, from all different languages, all different situations. And I'm very curious to find out about your definition of awakening. So please, can you tell us, what does this word mean to you?
Yeah, I kind of see there's been many different kinds of openings that are possible for us, and many different kinds of awakenings. I think what people often mean by awakening is what I might refer to as sort of a non-dual awakening. The basically like seeing that what we think about reality, what we think about ourselves is like never the truth of this, like never the truth about us. So however we're like our mental constructs about what this is, what reality is, what we are, what's happening are always like not the truth of what's actually here.
Oh, that's beautiful. So can you tell a little bit about what happened in your experience? Yeah.
Like how that realization sort of came about.
Yes, please.
I mean, I guess there were openings that I had where I glimpsed this, and I would read teachings and it would sort of resonate, but the mind was still trying to figure it out. You know, like it hadn't given up, and it was actually I read about an article that somebody talking about working with a teacher called Peter Fenner. And just described a conversation with Peter where Peter's sort of asking these deconstructive questions, and for some reason that really landed inside me. There was this approach of deconstruction, of asking questions and just like pulling apart whatever we believe, whatever the mind's attached to. Just really landed in a way where like I couldn't really believe my thoughts anymore. It was like it changed the relationship to thought in a sort of fundamental way. And I think that was a pretty significant shift. Like there was a sort of a fundamental shift in my relationship with my mind at that point.
Wow. How long ago was that?
That was 13 years ago.
Oh, right. So we kind of had this first realization like this
14 years ago, I think.
Around the same time. Yeah. 2010, 11.
Yeah, it was like it was New Year's 2010. It was right around there. Yeah.
Great. Sounds like we are from the same wave. There was a lot of happening around that time. Interesting. So if you would look before and after in your normal everyday experience, what was the biggest change? Like a very visible and biggest change? Can you remember? I know it's been a long time ago, but
it's hard to sort of recall. I mean, I think one of the big things was like the sort of story of self and like concern about like where am I at, what's going to happen to me, where am I going, like all that sort of like that, the anxiety around those sort of stories and tracking and judging, like all that sort of melted away because it was like, oh, it's all made up. The story of self is just a fabrication. We're just constantly making it up. So even when I'm talking about the story of awakening, it's just, I'm just telling a story, like pulling together little bits of my experience to put a narrative together. But like, of course, the lived experience is always something else. What I actually experience is something else. So there was a relaxation, sort of deep relaxation in that sort of like the problem of self. Like there is no problem of self. Like there's nothing I have to accomplish or no like image of self I have to achieve or so there was a real deep relaxation in that.
Wonderful.
Like,
I really resonate with that. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of freedom. Yeah, just like there's no the judgments I make of myself are fabrications of some kind of fundamental seeing of that. And like all the sort of questions of like what's my life purpose or what is life or what's death and all these again like all this sort of what's the spiritual truth or what is enlightenment, all of this sort of again like the seeking ends, right? Like it's like there's no answer to any of these questions, like then or at least there's no mental answer to any of these questions. There's no ideology or narrative or model we have to get a hold of.
Wonderful.
Nothing
Yay.
to remember.
It's just so much energy going into all these questions, trying to answer something that cannot be answered by the mind, but it's lived. I mean, it's here. It's always here.
Yeah.
If you need a purpose, here it is. The purpose of this is this conversation right now.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like it's like inviting us to trust the unfolding, to trust like our direct experience and to really, like surrender to that, like where there's no, it's, very liberating, very relaxing. A lot of like mental effort sort of could fall away in that. And I feel like it was especially helpful for me because I had an academic background. I'd been an academic, so my mind was just very strong. I was always trying to figure it out and have oh, this is what it is. Oh, this is what it is. And it was so beautiful to see that like any answer I give like that is never true. It's always inadequate. It's always false. So again, a huge relaxation around that. I don't have to like have a definition of my path or what awakening is or anything. Like I don't have to hold on to anything like that.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Mm.
Okay, so it's been quite a long time since then, and can you share a little bit about your journey since, like this embodiment or further realizations, or what happened, or what's relevant? Like, people ask this question, what's next? So, so if I ask you what happened after, what was next?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's very different for everybody, right? It's a very individualized, particular journey. I mean, that we're on. Our experience is always unique. So I always sort of want to give that like disclaimer before I say anything about my past, because it's often people I think can imagine like, oh, I should be having the same experience, or this is how it's supposed to go, and every journey is unique and valid. Every journey is totally valid. I for a long time there was kind of a like an integration of that awakening, that particular opening. I was very happy just sort of deconstructing everything and playing with that and sharing like and doing inquiry with people and just really just loving like playing with that that opening, I guess. Yeah, and sharing it. And then I came across a teacher. I was introduced to a teacher who called Jeannie Zandy, and I went to a retreat of hers, and I was just blown away by the approach she had of like welcoming whatever anybody was experiencing. So when I've been doing the deconstructive approach, it was like whenever anybody shared anything, I would like just pull apart. I would ask questions and sort of deconstruct what they were sharing, so they could see like whatever they'd said was not the truth of this. And her way was very different, because she was sort of validating everybody's experience and really like, but meeting them at a sort of energetic and emotional level. And I was really stunned by the power of that. It's like, wow, this sort of welcoming of everything we're experiencing, everything we're feeling, and it shifted my relationship to my emotions, to my experience, so that the feelings that I'd thought were like, this is not spiritual, I shouldn't have these feelings. It was like there was, even if I wasn't like believing the thoughts, the mental thoughts, there was still like a holding in the body against like, oh, this is not what I want. I want a different experience. Sort of, yeah, energetically, physically, like the body had learned to do this. So in her presence, I really got the sort of the transmission of like, oh, like this is all welcome. Like there's no problem. Like our experience is never invalid. What we say about it is never true, but like our experience itself is never invalid. So that was a really profound opening for me, and took a while to sort of integrate, and yeah, like working with that and like exploring all the different feelings, and yeah, and really bringing love to our experience, like this sort of softening and welcoming, and yeah, just like yeah, just being so gentle with ourselves, rather than sort of like, no, it's supposed to be like this, and kind of uptight and yeah, closed and holding on.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had a very similar experience meeting Pamela Wilson.
Ah, yeah.
Same thing, isn't it? I mean, yeah, when I saw her first time in London, I just went for satsang. Didn't know what satsang was. That was the first meeting like that. And when I saw Pamela, she was like, wow, she's divine kindness, divine femininity. I never met anyone like her. And I watched as well how she works with all these things that come up, with accepting and validating and allowing and welcoming. And that was just huge inspiration for me. I was like, right away, I wanted that. I wanted to facilitate that. And I started playing with this. But kind of, she showed me the way. And over the years, I keep in touch. And sometimes once in a while, I have a session. I love that. But yeah, the same like for you, the softening came in.
Yeah, and actually, Pamela was a teacher of Jeannie's, so Jeannie's Andy. Yeah, it's a very, very close connection there. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I understand you are doing this now. You are facilitating other people who come and find you in kind of same way, similar.
Yeah, as soon as I sat with Jeannie after that one retreat, I immediately the people I was working with, it was just like a new modality came online. Like I sort of got the download, and yeah, I immediately started meeting people in a different way. Yeah, and yeah, it profoundly changed how I was sharing with people. Yes, yeah, so yeah, so beautiful. And I also maybe want to mention as well, Gene Sandy taught me authentic movement as well.
Oh, what is that?
It's a particular practice for embodiment where you close your eyes and you let your body move in whatever way it wants to. And you can make noises, but you don't use words. And often you do it with a group, but you can also do it by yourself. and I found this such a profound practice. I mean, I was totally blown away by it when I had the experience of it, or at least by the second or third time, I was like, wow, like, and it sort of connected me to the intelligence of the body and the intelligence of like these energies that are moving through us, and again, really helped the sort of body learn to soften and surrender to these energies and these feelings, and yeah, rather than just sort of removing the conditioning of the body, freeing up the body. Really beautiful practice.
Well, there are words for that, huh?
I also love it because it's like such a it's a bit like sort of just sitting meditation or something, in that it has no it's not like adopt this posture or move in this way. It's just like really like bringing loving attention to your body and seeing how it wants to move, and like giving it permission and letting the attention go where it wants to go. Yeah, just like such a beautiful, like trusting like our innate intelligence.
Yeah, I recognize what you are talking about. It just like spontaneously happens. And I was wondering, are there words for that? It's just like when body is filled with a lot of energy, there is some kind of moment when this movement just happens. Yeah. And I'm sure for many people it's happening. It's just, what is it?
Yeah, and I think like practices like yoga and Tai Chi and so on, I think they're or Qigong, they're sort of pointing to like the intelligence that authentic movement reveals as well. There are other ways to tap into the intelligence of the body and give it permission.
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm curious, what is the main thing that people come to you for? Like, what is your gift?
Yeah. My sense is that sort of different openings that I've had are all sort of integrating and available. So there's a sense in which that sort of deconstructive non-dual opening is like part of like the energetic with which I'm sharing, like the way that I'm able to meet people, and then the sort of loving embodiment is also part of how I can meet people, how I can connect with people. And then more recently, I had an opening around erotic energy as well, with through the Somatica Institute. So a lot of the work I'm doing now, especially in private sessions, is supporting people in sort of an erotic awakening, like saying yes to our erotic energy, our pleasure, our desire. And for me, this was sort of the most shamed area, the most sort of constricted and tight. Like, oh no, sexual energy is bad, or it needs to be very carefully contained and controlled. And so the relaxation around that, and the it feels again like you're very significant in terms of like allowing all that yummy Kundalini energy to come through, allowing ourselves to enjoy all the different feelings and experiences, like to really receive the richness of it. So one of the ways that I work with people now is supporting people in working with their, like, validating, de-shaming their own erotic energy, and giving themselves permission to express their erotic energy in whatever way feels true for them. So really like validating like how we want to express erotically, how because again there's very sort of intense ideology around like how we're supposed to behave sexually and what we're supposed to do and not supposed to do, and also with intimate relationship, like what kinds of intimate relationships we're supposed to have, what that's supposed to look like. So really giving people permission to trust their own innate intelligence there. Like what kind of relationships do you want? How do you want to move with your erotic energy? How do you want to express erotically? Really, again, like validating people's own experience of that, validating the intelligence that lives inside them, and helping them come through the fear and the shame that we've been conditioned with around sexuality, around our erotic being.
Oh, that's powerful. Yeah, I noticed that many seekers, they are more in the head, like they're not in the body. In the head, it's like how to escape this body, how to transcend it, how to not be here. That's before realization, mostly. But, you know, it's so painful to be in the body that the seeking is kind of looking for a way to get out. And it's being lost in the mind, in the like fantasies, somewhere else, rather than being here. Because being here is too intense.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much energy in like being really present, like really being available. Like there's so much energy in different kinds of experiences that want to move through us, and it's like so delicious to like as we open to that. But it's also like like we're being invited to surrender to like this movement of life through us that we're not in control of, and often in our early conditioning, and sometimes in later conditioning as well, we had experiences where there was just no way for us to meet the energies that were coming out, the feelings that were coming up. So, we tightened and we sort of shut down to those energies, and we shut our life energy down. And so a lot of the conditioning is held in the body, and then often we went to the mind to sort of like to try to manage what was happening, in order to distract and pull away from like the pain and the contraction in the body. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, when they're seeking with the mind, it's like the conditioning is in the body, as like there's a lot of fear or anxiety, and often unconsciously held in the body, and that's driving the sort of the questioning mind and the seeking mind, and the mind that's holding on to ideologies and trying to figure it out. And so for many of us, the unlocking of the mind, sort of seeing through that, is then the pathway into the body. Then it's sort of like once we get that the story is false and there's no like we're not going to find the true story either. It's like, okay, then we can relax into meeting the experience of the body.
Beautiful. So that's the meaning of embodiment, just bringing attention back into all these sensations that are happening here.
Yeah.
And also feeling grounded, like feet on the ground. You're here, you're supported. And then everything can unwind. What I find with the people that are seeking, they are waiting for this event to happen, or aha moment, or some kind of confirmation from the outside that now they are awake. And there is a dreaming about this moment in the future where everything will be fine. Everything is going to be blissful, happy, joyful. Yeah, so, a lot of videos on YouTube kind of present that, but not many people talk about the difficulty that comes after, or the cleaning up process, or the dark night of the soul that can come in, and all that kind of stuff. Can we explore this a little bit with you?
Yeah. I mean, one way I often look at it is that it's kind of like this rejection of ourselves. Like we might call it shame, like this idea that there's something wrong with me, that I'm supposed to be a different way, that my experience is supposed to be different. And so enlightenment or the idea of enlightenment can often play into that. Like, so we're I'm supposed to be enlightened and I'm not. I'm supposed to be awake and I'm not. And yeah, like you say, we're imagining like there's a difference, another self that should be existing with another experience. Um, so the deconstruction of that story, like seeing like there's no other place that we should be, there's no other experience we should be having, that's always false. It's like then allows us to then meet what's actually here. Which, as you say, can still be very painful and difficult and challenging. It can be like a lot of shaky, anxious energy, or sort of like the kind of heaviness and kind of veil of like shame, where we're like, I just want to hide away, I shouldn't exist. And these are things that we can really feel in the body, even if we've seen that the shame story is false. That there's nothing wrong with me. The body can still react to like, no, I don't want to be here. Like it's still like the shame lives in the body, or the fear lives in the body. Yeah, so and much of the journey is supporting people or much of the work that I'm doing is supporting people in meeting that. And much of our journey, right, is like meeting these places inside us, like having the courage, the trust to meet them. The love.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Some of these deep buried emotions or deep buried rejections and repressions, they feel like numbness or emptiness. There is nothing there. I don't feel it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there is a door that is closed. I don't feel it. So how to deal with that? What would be your advice? I don't feel anything.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah. 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 I had a lot of that. Yeah. Yeah. It's like it's like it's kind of like that. It's like we've distanced from our embodied experience. Like it's kind of like we're not really like inhabiting it. We're not sensitive to it. Like we're like sort of divorced from it. Yeah. And like you say, like just sort of hanging out with a I'm good, I'm fine narrative, and rather than actually feeling what's here. Yeah. Which is um uh is always fine. like you're never not having the right, like it's always, your experience is always valid.
True.
Even when it's heartbreakingly painful, or it's tension and frustration or anxiety, it's like there's nothing wrong with these experiences. And the richness of experience really opens up when we say yes to it, right? When we're allowed to bring the awareness into the body, when it feels safe enough to actually be here for our experience.
Yeah, I think the real work is without words. The words can be there, but it's not what is happening. The real work is without words. It's just feeling it.
Yeah.
Being present to sensations, being present to, let's say if it's cold and close, being present to that.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what's happening when I'm with someone as well. It's like it's kind of like I'm embodying like the truth that there's nothing wrong with the person's experience. Like, because often when we're in our shame, you know, and this is true for me as well, when there's like some feeling or experience that's been shame that's sort of like unconsciously being held as wrong, it's like it's really hard for us to give ourselves permission to feel it. We're just like it's so sort of unconscious that we think like there's something wrong with what we're feeling and we're not allowed to feel it. So to have someone with us who's saying like get to feel that, you get to go there, you know, like supporting you in feeling what's there, can just be so helpful. Like they're not yeah, like there's yeah, like they're representing the sort of loving permission that the universe has for us, rather than the sort of the shaming conditioning that says we're not allowed to feel it, we're not allowed to experience it.
Yeah, this shame thing is very interesting because it can be shameful to feel shame. It's like double sandwich. Some are ashamed to feel the shame, so let's not feel it.
It's so unconscious. I mean, so many people are sort of like, "Oh no, I have no shame. I have no shame," you know. And it's like, no, I'm working on accepting it. I'm trying to be with it. It's like, you know, it's that, but that resistance is so often what I would call shame, where it's like we're actually like we've been taught that our experience is wrong. It's not allowed. There's something wrong with it.
Yeah, what comes up here for me now, it's like, yeah, in childhood. Like everyone was saying, do this, you're a good girl or good boy, don't do that, shame on you. Shame on you. Don't do this, how dare you, shame on you. That was the way to educate us to being humans. Actually, it was very wrong. But that was the way to punish us, to get us to feel shame and guilt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, guilt is another one of those interesting things. Interesting situations where, okay, once you realize that there is no controller here, everything was just unfolding and there was no other way to unfold than what it happened. So, you know, there's no guilt in that. It was all innocent. Doesn't matter how it appeared, it's pure innocence. Everyone was doing the best thing they could do in that situation, and you know, there is nobody there to blame, yourself or anyone else, or life or God or whatever.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful insight, isn't it? Like that sort of fundamental innocence. It's like so beautiful. Yeah.
And guilt, okay, teaches, right? If you do this, maybe that's not the best thing to do. Maybe next time do something else. So it's kind of learning. But shame has got different flavor.
Yeah. I often like to speak about remorse as like that sort of that recognition of like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that, you know, or I didn't see the way that I was impacting you, or and what often and you know, remorse is actually a beautiful experience. When we feel remorse, it's like it's so like loving, you know, like we're actually in touch with the truth of our heart when we see like, oh yeah, I see the impact I had and I regret that. It's like so beautiful. And it's only when shame comes in and says, and that's because I'm a bad person, and that's where it becomes like you know, so painful for many people, like the experience of like it's really the shame that's painful, not the remorse.
Right.
And often the fear of shame will keep us in something I would refer to as guilt. Like it's like for me, often guilt has a sort of flavor of like I'm not going to acknowledge what happened, like because I'm so scared of the shame that I might experience. I'm not going to acknowledge what happened. It's kind of like remorse is not an option because shame is present. So that traps us in guilt. So we're sort of like in denial and kind of like defended and like, no, I didn't do that. You know, like sort of, yeah, like we're not able to take in the experience of the people we relate with, and you know, the way that we do impact them in ways that we regret when we see it.
Well, thank you for explaining this or showing what's inside that sandwich. Because it's like, yeah, it's a sandwich, but what's inside in there? Ah, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, it can just be so confusing in these territories. So I find these concepts can be helpful just in like helping navigate in these places where it's like, because often, you know, if like someone's upset with us, um, we'll often go very quickly like to defending ourselves. Like I'm, you know, and it was like, I'm innocent. I didn't do anything wrong. You're the sensitive one. It's your own your experience, you know, and sort of uh yeah, like this sort of uh like defending against like what happened in the relationship. Like we're not able to sort of sit down and just like open and like, oh right, I get it, that was how you received what I did or what I said, and you know, I can feel how that landed with you. Oh yeah, wow, painful, you know, like just being able to like take in and empathize and you know, feel remorse. It's like, yeah, if I'd seen that, I would have, yeah, I wish I'd said something different or I'd behaved differently, you know. But it's so hard in that place because we don't want to go into, you know, we're trying to avoid the shame for good reason. Like we don't deserve to be shamed. We're innocent too. You know, if we had seen it, we would have done something different. And but so often it feels like um, if we acknowledge the pain that we cause someone, then we're going to be the bad one, and we deserve shame, and we shouldn't be in relationship, and we don't deserve love, and yeah, it's just not true.
Yeah. What comes is this image, you know, like Christians in old days, they used to get a whip and they whip themselves. Like,
Yeah,
I don't really know what was that for.
yeah,
Since I don't know, I didn't look into it, but that shame looks like that
yeah,
whip, that we've been given a whip and we've been told, shame on you, and you have to shame yourself
yeah,
and feel the pain of
yeah.
shame.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you deserve punishment. Yeah.
So it's one of the mechanisms of punishing yourself for
Hmm.
what happened, even though it wasn't a doing, it was a happening.
Yeah, and so many of us got that experience in childhood, right, where we received punishment from our parents when they were unhappy with us. So we are like, oh, I better learn to punish myself to stop myself doing things that make my parents unhappy with us and or with me, you know. Because you know, when we're little like that, we're so dependent on our caregivers. I mean, they have to love us. We're dependent on them for everything. So it's like there's no option of like having them, like, you know, condemning them or changing them is just not an option. Like we just got to like adjust ourselves to try to please them, to try to get their love in any place that they're not loving us, that they're not receiving us, they're not willing to like to to love us as we are,
Mm,
or able to love us as we are.
yeah.
Mm.
In my work, I meet a lot of these inner children, like
Mm.
the little ones that are so deprived of attention and so deprived of love that it's just heartbreaking sometimes to see. Sometimes they are dead, lifeless, or in prison,
Mm-hmm.
or hiding, or afraid. And it's so beautiful to meet these little ones, the inner child, and
This
tell
is,
them they're okay,
yeah,
and then take them out into a field and play whatever they want. It's just so delightful to see that inner child happy.
yeah,
I see a lot
yeah,
of that.
yeah. Me too. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. It's almost like the journey is so often like something happens and we're like, oh my god, this shouldn't be here, I shouldn't be feeling this. And then if we're able to meet these layers, if we're able to like not believe the shame and actually bring love to our and validation to our experience, we end up like meeting those like so vulnerable young places that just like so deserve love, you know. And I'm often so struck how hard it is for us to see uh like how our young ones deserve love, you know, because we're
Mm.
just so convinced like they shouldn't be that way because of the early conditioning we received. It's like, no, that's like not lovable, that shouldn't be here. And for like anybody else like, who like is in touch with like that vulnerable young one is going to be like, oh sweetheart, come here, you know. It's like it just evokes love. Like, you know, I see this in retreats, you know, where when somebody shares and the layer, we move through the layers, and then just everyone falls in love with that person. And it but it's but it's so hard for us to trust that, like, if we go in here, we're going to find that everything inside us deserves love. You know, it's just so hard for us to really trust that because we were taught something different. So we're just so convinced, like, oh no, if we go in here, we're going to find places that deserve to be punished and condemned and exiled. So we're so scared to reveal ourselves because we're expecting that's what we deserve.
Wow, that's
So
really touching what you said. Like every part deserves love.
mm, mm. I'm really loving sharing with you and exploring with you here. I can just feel like how there's so much resonance between us.
True. Yeah, as I say, it seems like we on the same wave.
Yeah,
Same wave.
yeah.
So same wave is talking to itself, sharing this.
Mm, mm,
And I ask everyone that comes on the show for your best advice for the seeker. Like, here you
mm,
go. Somebody is listening. Somebody is like trying to get the best out of this video and like, oh, where is it? Where is that gem? Give it to me. So can
mm,
you please?
mm. Yeah, I always find that question so hard because again, everybody's so unique, and it's like what's the yeah, I'm so interested in meeting what's actually present for people, what they're actually bringing to the situation. Um, yeah. Uh, mm. I mean, I feel like for someone who's seeking enlightenment, it's or awakening. Uh, yeah, I mean, the invitation is really like to see that uh, like there's nothing missing. You know, like the idea that there's something you should be experiencing is false. Like there's uh, it's almost like the sense of like there's something wrong with me, like I'm not what I'm supposed to be, gets projected onto spirituality as like I'm not enlightened and not awakened. There's some experience I'm supposed to be having, and yeah, it's like we sort of view ourselves as like inadequate, like our experience is not what it like, yeah, is wrong. And yes, I guess yeah, just I would want to point to like how it's not wrong. Like your direct experience is always valid, whatever you're experiencing. There's nothing wrong with your journey. And yeah, and like all the beliefs we have about enlightenment and awakening and so on, they're all fabrications. They're all made up. They can be helpful or useful, but they're not the ultimate truth. Like what you are doesn't need to wake up. Like the awakeness that you are is already awake.
That pretty much sums up the message. Yeah, you're already awake. I mean, what is sleeping? It's like, are you aware right now? Yes. Obviously, yes. Here you go. What's sleepy?
Yeah.
And then you see all these ideas, how others awaken, what other experiences they have. You know, maybe it's a little bit gross, but I'm going to share this. Like example or metaphor with the seeking. It's like you come to a restaurant, go through the menu, and it's like, oh, so many delicious things. Let's have that one. Yeah? And then the waiter brings this beautiful plate full of delicious whatever you want to eat, right? And you look at that plate, I'm like, it's not that. It's not that. And then you just go under the table and touch around the table edge, and you find some old chewing gum, somebody else's, and you put that in the mouth and like, yeah, that's good. I need to have what they had. Juicy. While this beautiful plate is in front of your eyes, you know, eat it. That's your experience. But it's like, okay, maybe somebody else had this juicy chewing gum that I can chew now for a little bit. And when this is no longer working, I'll find another one and chew a little bit of that. it's a little bit like this. Like, here you go, you have your experience. What else do you want?
Yeah, and everybody's like what's possible for us to experience is like so like there's so much possibility for us, right? And people are having all kinds of crazy, amazing experiences all the time. You know, and we can hear about an experience like that and say like, oh, well, my experience must be inadequate then, and what's wrong with me? You know, and like how can I be like that person? That's what I should be like. But it's like, no, your experience is totally valid, always valid and different. It's unique.
Yeah. And entrance into that wow experiences is through accepting and fully embodying that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is my experience. It looks like this right now. It feels cold and closed and boring and nothing is happening, but this is on the plate right now. Let's eat it.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, it's so lovely when we can be with ourselves, you know, and whatever the experience is. It's so sweet. Like even if it's like, you know, even if it's like I notice like often when I'm like touching sort of painful parts of my experience, it's actually like so sweet. Like the experience of meeting them, it's like such a relief to finally meet those places and love, you know. Often we imagine like, oh well, it's you're not you should you why if you're crying it's bad, or if you're shaking in fear it's bad, you know. But actually like it's so beautiful when we meet these places and we let the energies move through us. Like this is exactly the meal for us right now. This is what's available, is like to have the richness and vividness of this experience.
Yes.
And then we'll often use spiritual ideas to sort of attack ourselves there. It's like, well, no, I should be tranquil, or like I should be, yeah, like unmoving, you know, like.
Yeah, say, do you want to be a robot? No.
Yeah.
Okay, then feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think in recent years, so whatever, I noticed that there is always this positive thinking, positive, and the negative is bad. Negative is something to transcend or get rid of. But come on, you know, life brings all kinds of experiences, and you know, if you don't name it good or bad, it's an experience. It's something here. So you know, who says that it's wrong or that it's bad or it shouldn't be happening? If it's here, it should be happening. How do you know it's here? You know, that's it.
Yeah. 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 I mean, yeah, it's so shaming, right? Of like our experience when we talk about like having negative experiences or negative energy or something. It's like it's so shaming of the experience. And again, if we go to these negative places like numbness or dissociation or frustration or terror. If we go into these places, we actually find like there's all kinds of aliveness in those places. Like there's like that's the stuff that's wanting to be felt right now. That's what's calling us, inviting our attention. And so, yeah, so often we're like, oh no, like let me put on my meditation tape or something and ignore that experience and push that away. And when we do that, it's the conditioning just stays there, and like we're still avoiding that place. We're still like averting our eyes, averting our attention from that feeling that wants to be felt.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just too painful to feel it. And we need a hand, or we need somebody to sit with us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like more reasons. And that's often very confusing to people as well, right? Because it's like people often imagine when they come to my retreats, like, oh, it's all going to be blissful and happy and love, and and it's true. There's a lot of that, but also when we have that, when we're in a space that's that resource with love and consciousness, like all the stuff we haven't met, like, oh my God, look, is this my time to be met? Can I be felt now? So a lot of the really sort of difficult stuff to me comes up when we have resource. It's been waiting for decades to finally be felt, to finally be met. Like, are we spacious enough to feel this now? And it can be very confusing because we have this sort of like linear idea about the spiritual path of like, well, you just sort of like, get more and more blissful and happy and peaceful. It's like, and actually, like, no, often like you have an opening, and then like the dark stuff that you've like had no way to meet earlier now is like, oh, there's resource here. Let's, like this can come up. This wants to be met.
Yeah.
And it's always challenging when we haven't met it before, when it's like it's something we've resisted meeting our whole life, often unconsciously. I mean, almost always unconsciously.
True. I call this a cosmic washing machine. Like, you get into a cycle and you're gonna be washed and spinned and rinsed and, and dried and then ironed in the end. And here you go till the next cycle. It's like all nice and clean and shiny and open, and then boom, boom, something else comes up.
Yeah.
So great.
Yeah.
Being washed is good,
Yeah. I mean, the aliveness that we are has no interest in ending. It just wants to keep on like exploring and meeting things. And yeah, it's like there's no end point to this journey. I think that's often the thing as well with enlightenment or awakening. It's like people like, it's like, what comes after that? Like, there is no after, right? Like, it's like, well, that's the end of seeking. And then you just like hang out in your cave, like in bliss forever or something. But but actually, like, my experience is the aliveness, like keeps wanting to explore and grow and yeah, like this is fresh and new.
Yeah, every day is a new invitation.
Yeah.
Okay, and Adam, how can people find you? How can they book a session, or where do they need to go?
Yeah, just my name, adamchacksfield.com is the website. So you can find my information there. Adam@adamchacksfield.com is an email address you can use to email me if you'd like to do a session. Yeah.
Wonderful. And any final words? Or final silence, or whatever you want to share.
Yeah, I think I just want to share like how much I've enjoyed meeting you finally, and I've heard so much about you, and it's just so lovely to meet you and to feel the resonance between us, and yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation with you.
Well, thank you so much. Me too. And for those who are listening, thank you for listening. And please contact Adam if you feel like, or me if you feel like, or somebody else, whoever. Just keep going, looking into your experience, eating your plate, and have a nice day. Bye for now.